Oh yeah. This one's for Malcolm Young. Once again, the YellowShy YouTube channel hits the magnificent airwaves. YouTube's most exciting community, the PokeTubing community. What's going on? This isn't Pokemon Sweet. Hang on a minute. This comes first, baby. Riding down the highway, going to a show, stopping all the byways, playing rock and roll, getting rock, getting stoned, and high, don't know the words, and boom, and chuck. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Yeah, ACDC, Malcolm Young, co-founder of the band, the Aussie Wonders, are swirling in the heavens, or he is swirling in the heavens, and we'll talk about ACDC in a minute. What's going on here? This is Pokemon Cawps, is it? Yes, that's right. My Pokemon Suite has somehow lost the save file on it, so we've moved on. I did not have the time. I have time to upload once a week or month or whatever it is, so I thought I don't really have time to start my save file over again and get back to where I was, so who cares? Let's just start something else. This is, yeah, Pokemon Cawps, and from what I can get the sense of is you play a cop. By the way, I am YellowShy, and I'm post-recording, commentating this, trying something a little bit differently. If you're not new to the channel, you'll know that I have extreme difficulties at multitasking. I can hardly monotask, let's be frank. So, we're playing this, I'm post-commentating, so I've played through one part of this so far. I can tell you that you play as a cop, and the game, from what I can make out so far, is created by a young male who, and we're playing through the perceptions of his worldview, where we are kind of normalizing the objectifying and sexualization of women, along with, yeah, no, I'm not kidding, you'll see. And gross proportions of pornography. I really there's really only no way of saying it, and you'll find that out as we play through the game. I'm not really going to be talking too much about the game. Why not, Shane? Isn't that how people normally do it? No. Well, yeah, maybe, but that's not me. I tell you, I always have so much I want to say in my videos. Yeah, I should have figured out the hack was named by Crizzle from South Florida. I should have really figured it out by then that even though you're playing as a cop, even though I'm playing as a woman cop, the game isn't necessarily going to give a real equitable sense of what social justice is. I don't know, maybe it's satire. You can choose to decide for yourself. I can't tell you how to think or how to believe. I can only tell you what's fucking morally right. Yeah, I always have things to say, and then I get so looped up in the game while I'm playing it that when I talk, I can't really say what I want to say, or I don't end up saying what I want to say. So we're here in the police academy, and as you're reading the text, I'm sure you're gonna find out very soon what I mean by see, remember, justice, no room for mercy. I don't know if that's supposed to be funny. The reference to donuts. ACDC, Malcolm Young, at the age of 64, I think ACDC was, I mean, there's a lot of classic rock bands that the young generations know about, but only know about it in a sort of folklore now. You know, you can talk about whomever you want, really, like whether it's Aerosmith or Led Zeppelin, you know, white bands. Notice how those ones get remembered a little bit more than, say, Marvin Gaye or something. Not that he was rock and roll, but he was pretty inspiring. Anyways, ACDC is different from the rest as we enter a crime scene This zigzagoon needs to be reprimanded. Yes, we're ingesting YellowShy fluids. What's that? You must be new. It's vodka. As I say, if you want to get in the spirit, then there's no better way than to swallow spirits. And what better time than to do it during the holiday season? You know, festives and it's that time of year where if you are a young person and maybe not quite of age to go out and buy your own alcohol, this is the time of year that your parents might have some laying around somewhere. So go find it right now if you want to get in the groove here. Quite honestly, you'll find out as we progress through the rest of this video, you might need it to really swallow some of the things that happened so far in this game. I picked Carvana, by the way, and I guess I had thought that the physical special split was in this game. It's not, so Carvana probably wasn't the best starter choice. But anywho, ACDC, it's the band that people know, like more so than any classic rock band. And I use the term classic rock like my father would. It makes it sound manly and shit. Like you'll go to a concert and you'll say like, oh, I was, you know, I was at this band, and I'm like, yeah, I know who they are, but you'll have to go like, oh yeah, they're classic rock. As if somehow that makes it like way fucking better just because it's classic. I don't know what classic rock means. Are they funky? Like, what are they? Psychedelic? I don't know. Anyways, but ACDC, out of any band that came out of that time, I guess so much more ingrained in our society, more than ever. I'll explain why the Growlth got named Rio in a minute. Well, hell, we'll just, we'll get into that now. Malcolm Young will be sorely missed. He's swirling in the heavens. Someone tweeted a couple of weeks ago that 2016, with all the terrible, terrible shit going on all around the world, really, but particularly concentrated in that country just south of where I am broadcasting up here in Canada. Horrible, horrible things, and I've completely lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, the tweet. What happened was, the tweet said that, you know, maybe 2016 was a test to see who could see into what was going to happen, and who could best measure humanity, and only Prince and David Bowie passed the test, as they were swirling in the heavens in 2016. Both of them are still very much with us. I think Malcolm Young can join that crew. To use a very gendered term there, like crew. Yeah, lots of awful things going on in the world. Chicanery and fuckery going on with rich people. But we don't really need to get into that. Fires, forest fires are ablaze. Orrin Hatch, one of those rich white douchebags I was talking about, he's a senator who was a big proponent in the lying and supporting child molesters in order to give himself incredible tax cuts. He claimed that climate change isn't real, which is surprising because his house is on fire right now in Southern California. So all of the people, even if you're rich and maybe I don't like you so much, or if you're a white dude who doesn't support women's rights, you know, you can believe what you want. I'm still concerned about you. I still have a shred of fucking humanity in me that my deepest feelings are to those who are affected by the forest fires in California. But it is a result, isn't it? I mean, who knew that all those joints, you know, laying around the ground would be a tinderbox for forest fires? I'm joking, of course. Nothing against marijuana. In fact, a great country of Canada up here, not to be smug, America, but we'll be legalizing the drug in a couple, I don't know why I said a couple, next summer across the entire country, and that's going to be fantastic. We were talking about it in one of my education classes. I'm going through to be a teacher, and we were talking about legalizing marijuana, and we will be the first group of teachers. I mean, I could get a job as early as next fall, or like 2 years, 2 years from now. I could have a job as a teacher, and in Canada, there will be of course, marijuana will be legalized, and we'll be some of the first teachers that will be coming in, just as our laws are going to change in regards to marijuana. Here's what I mean, by the way, about the objectification of women. We do not support that at all here on the YellowShy channel. In fact, we picked the women's sprite in honor of the Me Too movement. So many women are silenced and affected, and if we have some time in this video, I will get into that as well. We do catch a waltz at the end of, off camera at the end of this video, and we nicknamed it Rose, or we will nickname it Rose. I have done it, but you don't know that yet. It hasn't happened in this weird time-space fabric that we exist in, where I do post-commentary. When we've nicknamed it Rose for the Rose McGowan, whom is a real leading member right now of women's rights. There's lots of, not saying she's the most prominent figure, of course, but as a victim of Harvey Weinstein, she's really taken the charge and has spoken out, really, well, we'll get into it. We were talking about marijuana in the classroom in one of our classes, about the effects of having marijuana legalized and what that's going to mean in the classroom. And we're 20 years old in the class, 22 years old. And like, I don't think anything's going to change. 15, 16 years old kids, I don't think, drugs are coming into school every once in a while anyways. This legalizing ain't going to change. But anyways, our teacher, who's in her mid-60s or so, I would say. I mean, I'm just taking a guess, but for the sake of the story and the sake that you don't know who I'm talking about, let's just say mid-60s. And we're talking about it, and she goes, first of all, I had a very hard time I think I'm a very mature person, but I had a hard time not holding back juvenile laughter when she said the word vaping. But she did. And anyways, what she said is that there were some studies. She used to be a speech pathologist kind of deal, and she was talking about, the effects on singers using marijuana. So having children use marijuana, and the effect it can have on your vocal cords, because the smoke from marijuana is at a hotter temperature than, say, cigarettes. And so she said that, well, that's something you maybe need to be worried about if you're a music teacher, and that you don't want your students, vocal cords strained. And I thought, wow, because I don't know if you know anything about me, but I'm very much the type that will sit back, and even if I think of something witty to say and one-liner to say in front of the class, I'm usually reserved enough to hold it within myself. I'm kidding, of course. The YellowShy thing, that's a joke. Or at least the shy part it is. I actually do have yellow skin. So I, of course, say in front of the class, and I go, wow, that really, I could imagine them, in high school, they're having the Christmas concert. Because, of course, it's a white people's school, so they still have Christmas concerts. And they would go, please welcome the high school band to sing the Christmas carols. And I said, what if, so we're just going to turn all our kids into Bob Dylans? Is that really so bad? Could you imagine that? The high school choir coming out to sing Christmas carols, and they're like, rocking around the Christmas tree at the Holly Rock. I didn't think that would be so bad, but of course I couldn't hold that in. I thought it was hilarious. And of course, I'm assuming you're staying silent right now, if you're even watching this far into the video. If you are, hooray, good for you. This guy is a creep. And since we are a woman We will fight for women's justice, and I won't even laugh. There's nothing funny about that. So, anyways, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I said, yeah, what's so wrong with kids being turned into Bob Dylans in your high school, and that's going to affect their vocal cords? Bob Dylan, of course, won the Nobel Prize for Literature last year. He was up against Leonard Cohen. Really, Leonard Cohen's... I should have included him in that tweet with Bowie and Prince. He's a poet of masterful qualities who also sang. And I think that it's been about just over a year now since Leonard Cohen's passed away, and you probably don't know who Leonard Cohen is, but both him and Bob Dylan were very exquisite poets in their music, and they both wrote poetry as well, particularly Leonard Cohen. And he's a great example. I guess both him and Bob Dylan were examples of the fact that it's not so much how you sing, but it's what the words are that you speak. Because really neither Leonard Cohen or Bob Dylan could really sing. But it was all about how they said. And I think we've really lost that in music today, in that it's so much about how you sound and not so much about what you're trying to say. Leonard Cohen would sing like this. He would, what's the one you know would be Hallelujah, right? But which was covered by a multitude of artists. But right, this is how Leonard Cohen would sing. He would go, "I've heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah." Like that's how Leonard Cohen sang. I think that was incredible mimicking of Leonard Cohen's voice. Anyways, so we are legalizing marijuana up here in Canada. So if you're looking forward to that, you can join our revolution with Canada in misspelling nicknames for particular bird type Pokemon, as I did there. Kind of forgot about the W there in Squawk. So we'll fix that when we get to the name raider. If the name raider doesn't turn out to be a pervert of extraordinary proportions, this couple, I don't really have a comment for this couple. I don't think I really have anything to say about that. I'll just talk about what I was going to mention, which I've completely forgotten about now, so give me a minute. We're just doing some grinding here. I'm trying to get Squawk up a couple of levels, and I've completely lost him. I know what I was going to talk about now. Don't worry. I wrote down one word in my little guide here, and I forgot about what exactly I was going to talk about with that. Rosalia's would have been, not too bad if there was Generation 4 Pokemon in this game. I would have been all over it, because Roserade is, it's up there. I think probably my top 3 Pokemon. I don't know what the other 2 are, though. So is it in your top 3? I don't know. I told you I've had vodka. I don't remember what my favorite Pokemon are. If you've been following any of the this incredible movement of sexual harassment and the women victims coming forward and refusing to stay silent, I just want you to know that you need to step it up. Because I've done, and I know who I'm talking to, well, because there's 6 people who watch my videos, and I know every 6 of them are young males. But I've done analytics, even on some of my older videos that get views still. My Pac-Man World 2 playthrough gets views for some reason still. I'm not really sure why. I did the, I looked at the new analytics beta on YouTube, and I know that 80% of my viewers are men, and I think probably that's the case for every single YouTube video. So there's a good chance that these words will hopefully hit the right ears. But you have to understand that we, as men, it's time to be silent about what we think is wrong with the world, and it's time for women to speak out about how they've been silenced and how they've been oppressed. And it's our job to listen to them. It's our job to actively listen to them, which means not just pretend we're listening to them. And we need to support women. If there's anything that can be fixed in America, is with if you're concerned, if you're upset that none, well, as we're doing the recording now, Al Franken, the senator from Minnesota, has stepped down because of his allegations. But if you're wondering why Congress people and senators and people of government aren't being held accountable for their sexual harassment, and it's because it's controlled by white guys that want to normalize this, and it's our job to elect more women. Is really the easiest fix here, and that means I know you're too young to vote, perhaps, and perhaps you don't have any time on your hands because you go to school and then you're on the computer and on YouTube and playing Pokemon for the rest of your day, and you don't feel like somewhere in that time you have room in your lives to be activists, or at the very least active citizens in the world. But I think it's so important that at the very least, if you know someone who's an activist, that you at least thank them, that you support them. And if you know women who are strong and powerful and have a lot to say and can do a lot of good, encourage them to progress in this patriarchic fucking hierarchy that we've created, that men have created. Let me be quite clear here. Well, speaking of governments, people who haven't been held accountable, look at this. We've just walked into Roy Moore's house, and he's, yeah. We won't really get into that. If you are from Alabama, there's a good chance that I love you. And do the right thing. Do the right thing. But we need to support women. We need to encourage women to fight for in any way, whether or not it's to run for office, whether it's to run for school council or student council or anything. I think it's important to have women's voices represented at the very least. And that's how we can start to fix all of this shit that we've put ourselves into. We've given white guys long enough to prove that they can do things for the right of humankind and for the right of fucking human rights and shit. So it's time to shift it up and start voting for and supporting and encouraging women and people of color and get over that. On the private side of things, there's a thing called a system called HR, Human Resources, and that's why in the private sector some people are being held accountable for their actions, indecent actions. And if you've been following some of the story regarding Netflix, I know you love Netflix. I do too. And Kevin Spacey, of course, immediately he had been ousted from the show and from appearing really on anything in regards to Netflix. We'll be honest, Kevin Spacey's done. I'm hoping that even the world of comedy is starting to open its eye up a little bit more, and they won't accept anyone like Kevin Spacey into their community. But there was a rage of hypocrisy being yelled at to Netflix in regards to Danny Masterson, who I remember from That 70s Show. And no, it wasn't in the 70s. I'm not that old. But I do remember watching That 70s Show growing up. But what was his show, The Ranch? He'd been alleged to have raped, was it 3-4 women? And probably more. And they weren't saying anything. They weren't saying anything. They weren't gonna. Netflix wasn't responding to anybody about why they weren't ousting him from his show and why they weren't dealing seriously with his allegations. And oh my goodness, I'm saving. We're out of time. Oh my goodness. Gosh damn it. You know what? I progress into a grinding montage for a few minutes. So we're gonna talk over that. So maybe you will see me catch the ralts. I think I did show that on camera after, because I was planning on doing another episode after, and I never did. So what happened was an executive at Netflix, for whatever reason, coaches his daughter's soccer team, which I found peculiarly odd. That a rich guy would be taking time out of his, corporate duties of the patriarchy to coach his 9-year-old daughter's soccer team. But anyways, he was coaching, and a mother of one of the teams they were playing against comes up to him and says, "You work at Netflix, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, why haven't you done anything about Danny Masterson's allegations of rape?" And the executive tells the woman, goes, "Well, to be honest, ma'am, we don't actually believe any of the women." And the woman goes, "Well, I'm one of them." And this was reported by a freelance reporter, Yashar Ali, who he's a freelance, but he does some stuff from the Huffington Post. I think that was from the Huffington Post, if I'm not mistaken. And so then now Masterson is gone. He's been ousted off of the ranch, and they're going to write him off the show or something like that. And if you think that this is some magnificent coincidence that this woman just happened to have been one of the accusers, consider how close-minded you're thinking. And yes, here's Rose McGowan, our Ralts now, which I think will be the symbol of the starking contrast of the world in which I perceive and the world of which the creator of this game, I believe, perceives. I don't really know. I was going to tell you the story about Rio, too. I guess that's going to have to wait until next time. But let me just say this quickly before we shut down. If you think that this was a magnificent coincidence, consider that probably every woman has her own story of being mistreated, objectified, talked about by men, yelled at by men about their sexuality. So to me, it doesn't matter who comes up to that network executive and says, "How come you haven't done anything?" To have the fucking brash, austerity, I suppose, to use that word not quite precisely, to tell that woman that we don't believe them, shows how limited-minded I think a lot of men still are. In that just because some women are coming out, doesn't mean that only those women have stories to tell. I think every woman has their bit to say, and that's why we need to listen, and that's why we need to be open-minded to them and understand their point of view for a goddamn change. So consider that. Definitely consider that as we work our way through Pokemon Cawps, which I don't think is going to take too much of what I said seriously. And perhaps that's part of the problem, and perhaps we'll get into that in a little bit more depth. So respect women, and we will see you next time, where I've left you hanging at least with something that I'll tell you the story about Rio, the dog. next time on Pokemon Cawps. So thank you so much for watching this, listening to me. Stay groovy. And if I don't upload by the time the festivities of December are over, we'll see you maybe in the new year, where we can once again hope that 2018 will be better, even though we know the very back of our hearts that there are people who don't seem to have located their hearts, that seem to be in control and in power of this world, and that things aren't going to get better. I'll tell you this, I know enough about history to know that this is going to go away eventually. So, it's okay. I mean, things will get better. I think we're starting to see that already, really. We're getting more hope that we can come out on top of this. So, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Pokemon Cawps. As for Pokemon Sweet, if I get some time, maybe over the holidays, I'm done school next week, perhaps I will start a new file and work my way back to where we were. But the screen has gone black now, so I must go. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.